second. Just gotta make sure.
My battery's gonna go dry. And I think, well, we can't show it tonight. We don't have the battery.
There we go.
Okay, my screen is up there.
Yep.
Okay.
There.
All right. Anyway, once it starts, there's no music, there's no audio on that. I'm the audio. And since you're all rail fans, I don't have to explain every single picture. Like that's a Susquehanna engine, that's a little ferry, but I'll occasionally interject. So let's see what happens when I click on this. Are you ready? If this works. Yeah. All right, it looks like it's gonna work. I am impressed. Not with me, I'm impressed with the people from St. Louis. All right. All righty. There's a map. I don't know how you get rid of that talking Richie King thing on there, but can you drag it across?
Yeah.
Well, it's not on my screen, it's on your screen. Just make it go away. All righty. Anyway. I can start over. Anyway, obviously these first few pictures are not mine. I think that's a Bob Collins shot. That's the old Erie terminal. That's where Susquehanna ran passenger trains out of before they moved into the Route 3 terminal. So these are obviously historic pictures. I didn't take these. That's the fat Susquehanna scheme. The heritage unit they got now has the thin scheme. All right. Edgewater was their major eastern terminal on the Hudson River. And in the early 1970s, they were still running down there. So there's a Alc 1000 switcher with a boxcar in Edgewater. If you, I don't have the exact date on these, but they're the early 1970s. I do have a cheat sheet, but I didn't bring it with me. These are all in the Edgewater area. There's the Palisades up there. Those houses now probably go for $1 million a piece. And of course, this was the happy days of railroading. You can walk all over the place. Nobody yelled at you. Nobody told you to get out of there. You just took pictures. And these were original Ektachrome slides. But through the magic of scanning slides, you can color correct for Kodachrome green and Ektachrome blue and GAF red. Agfachrome, yeah. As you can see, they had some business down there. I wouldn't say a substantial amount, but they had some. Yeah. Yeah. And quite an interesting operation. Yeah. Well, they had a pier there at one time too. That's where the sea train operation ran out of. And back then you had boxcars lettered for real railroads. It wasn't just graffiti slopped leaser cars. Look at that house up on top of the hill.
Cliffside Park.
Yeah, well, it was Cliffside, all right. Okay, next slide. Richie, what are you doing over there? Put your hand off that computer. Okay, nice side view. These were actually taken, I believe they were like in November or March, so it was really good lighting. There's the tunnel, the Edgewater Tunnel. That the Susquehanna Tunnel, not to be confused with the West Shore Tunnel, which is now the river line for New Jersey Transit, or Hudson Bergen Light Rail, actually. This is at the tunnel looking toward New York City on the other side of the water there, the upper part of Manhattan.
The NYS&W still owns that tunnel. As a matter of fact, last week they had to rescue 2 kids out of there.
Yeah, there's a good view of the tunnel itself. And it's abandoned now. They don't use it for anything. I'm surprised they haven't.
There's a water pipe.
Just that, yeah. And it was actually a Y, as you can see. In the West Shore Tunnel, the New York Central West Shore Tunnel, which is now the Hudson Bergen, it was the same kind of design, it had a Y there. It's an old Erie passenger coach that they made into a yard office. Yeah, yeah, they must have had a derailment. That's the only reason they fixed something. The engine terminal was in Little Ferry, some people call it Ridgefield Park. The railroad referred to it as Little Ferry. As you can see, that was on the other side of the river. So it was probably closer to Ridgefield Park. And that's the engine terminal. Once again, some of these shots were taken back in the early 60s, like 1962, 63. And you had to park and walk over the bridge to get in here. And if you went on a weekend, there was absolutely nobody around. So once again, nobody to throw you out, nobody to yell at you. And they got these, December 30th, 1962. I actually put the date on there. That's when I convinced my father to drive Bill Chaplik and myself up there to get pictures of these. Because we knew they had just taken delivery of them and we wanted to get pictures of them. So he took us up there and dropped us off. He said, I'm gonna go have a couple of beers. I'll pick you up in an hour or so. So we ran around and snapped pictures of everything. They had the most archaic old roundhouse there and turntable. They had three of these, 1800, 1802, and 1804. And Susquehanna had this thing where if an engine had an MU, if it was MU capable, it would have even numbers. And most of their engines were that way. They did have a couple of engines with odd numbers that didn't have MU capability. There's the turntable. They actually used it because that's the only way you could get in and out of the roundhouse. There wasn't a run-through track or entry track for the roundhouse.
Still works.
Yep.
Still use it.
Yep, and that was taken from a boat. Bill Chaplik and I, we also had this thing where we would sneak into engine terminals by boat, and they would never figure out that somebody would come in the back way. So you just tie the boat up there and then sneak in there, because they would always be looking for rail fans coming over the bridge or something. We did the same thing at Croton Harmon one year, and lived to tell about it.
Is that a part of the bridge or is that just the?
That was a tail track, so when you were putting an engine on a turntable, if you overran the turntable, you didn't go in the water. And there's another shot of the engine terminal. A lot of turntables have that, even when they're not over water. There's a little stub track, not even long enough to hold an engine, but just so you wouldn't go overboard. So most of these slides that I have here are in geographical order. So now this is in the later Walter Rich years, because there's a heritage unit, RS1 over there, painted yellow and black. This was when the Bergen-Rockland chapter, NRHS, was involved with the Susquehanna. This is before URHS days. And they got several engines painted. That one's seen better days. Yeah, but they got one of the S2s painted in a heritage paint scheme and had a big celebration up there. And these, notice the open tri-level auto racks over on the New York Central. The New York Central, or the West Shore, was parallel, still is. CSX now is parallel with the Susquehanna.
Susie-Q herself.
Yeah, that's where the title slide came from. And they had a bit of equipment down there at Little Ferry, and I was always an equipment shooter too. And of course, my buddy Bill Chaplik, he was the roster collection king. Anything that could be equipment shot, like a caboose or a coach or anything, he would take pictures of. Susquehanna had passenger service till 1966. And they had a guy named Irving Madman. Irving Madman, who wanted to get rid of the passenger service. He put an ad in the paper, said, I'll pay you $2,000 to stop riding my railroad. And the commuters declined it because they knew driving into New York was not worth $2,000. But he eventually prevailed and got rid of the trains. They ran as far as Butler. Yeah. Richie, are you playing with it?
Is this a
No.
good time to ask when they reopened?
That was around 84 to take advantage of the 1985 stack trains. That's when the stack trains started. Some of these I put dates on, like right there. These were for the locals. Remember, they didn't, back then, they didn't run up over the Erie. These shots are more of the classic Susquehanna. Note the silver lettering on the 0114. The other ones had white lettering. Some of them had yellow lettering. So if you're a modeler, you got to know this stuff. Somebody shows you a caboose and it's got silver lettering, and you say, you screwed up. It's supposed to be white. Nope.
I think one of them.
Now, that sounds like something I would have done in my high school days when I was model railroading. You'd start painting something and you decal it, and they say, I don't like that, I'll just do the other side different. Because you can only see one side at a time, so it's not a big deal. In fact, today Amtrak has wrapped some ACS 64s, you know, the electric engines for Harry Potter, and one side is different than the other intentionally. So, but you can only see one side at a time, so. Yeah. So I think I have the whole caboose roster, different visits, different days from the 1960s to 1970s. I think I got all of them.
Tom Train used to say they were able to fill the closets with beer and switch to beer.
Oh,
They get cases of beer. They load up the closets.
yeah.
Like he's something to drink on the way home.
Yeah, the D&H had that deal in Yatesville, Pennsylvania. That's south of Scranton, north of Hudson, north of Wilkes-Barre. There was a beer distributor there, and they would drill cars in there, and the beer distributor people would actually give them cases of beer, and they put them right on the front of the engine outside. They didn't have to hide anything. Nobody cared. That was in the pre-FRA days. Yeah, those are the 1,000 horsepower blunt trucks. They had S1s and S2s. The S1s are 600 horsepower, and the S2s were 1,000 horsepower. So an S2 and an RS1 were really basically the same thing. They were both 1,000 horsepower.
Always a road switcher.
Yeah, correct. It had road switcher trucks like that. And they also had steam boilers. Not all of them, but some of them.
You don't see any slides in the speeds of the passenger trains. They're going 40 miles an hour, 50 miles
Yeah.
an hour.
When I was a kid, about 14 years old, I took an Erie-Lackawanna train from Lake Hopatcong Station to Patterson, to old Boonton Line Patterson High Station. I think it was 64, before they ripped out the Boonton Line. And I walked down from there over to Broadway Station on the Susquehanna. How I even knew this back then, I don't know, but I did it. And I walked through Patterson, did not get mugged, did not get kidnapped or anything. And then I walked east on the Susquehanna, several stations, because I wanted to actually say I rode the Susquehanna. So I think it was Vreeland Avenue or something. It was a couple stations down. And I had to schedule, so I knew when the train was coming. So I got on the thing and rode it. And you're right, it was like horrendous track, but we were going like 45 miles an hour. And I don't even think they collected my fare, because like who would ever get on at Vreeland Avenue going westbound? So that, like there was no sign of a conductor. And then I got off at the main station in Patterson. I think it was called Broadway, and then walked back to the Erie-Lackawanna station and caught a train that went to Netcom and got home the same day as a kid. Yeah.
Was the Patterson City branch still in effect then?
No, I think that was already gone. Yeah, that was the one that they ran the RDCs on, but the Jersey Central had those RDCs even when I was a kid, like 61, 62. Those were 55, 8, 9, 560 and 561. There was 4 of them.
This is the unit they turned into a bicentennial unit.
Yes, correct. I think I have a shot of that in here somewhere. Hope I'm not boring you to tears with this stuff. There isn't too many places where all this stuff is together in one place, and I really worked on it to try and get everything together. And you can't go back and get it again. Yeah. I think they had 4 passenger coaches. These came from the Boston and Albany.
Six of those.
At one time, yeah, but at the end, there was 2 trains that had 1 coach and 1 train that had 2 coaches, at least in 64. And then before that, they actually had some stainless steel coaches. They weren't air conditioned. They were built by Bud. I never saw them because they were gone. I think they went in 59 or 60, something like that. So this is all a little ferry. Yeah, there's actually tracks in the weeds. And again, nobody yelling at you, nobody telling you. Now look there, you can see there was an old semaphore signals. The blades are gone. There's the bridge. So you're looking north. The signals over on the right are on the New York Central. And there's the famous bridge, which was also a vehicle bridge. It was 1 track and 1 roadway. It used to be double track, of course. And here's back in the days when it was double track. That's not my shot. Yeah, that's when it was double track. That's preceding me. There's the bicentennial. Yeah. So there you can see they're scrapping the other track, turning it into a roadway. I guess the employees got tired of parking over there and walking all the way in. Because there was no other road in there. And there's when the Jersey Central chapter NRHS had a fan trip with that bicentennial engine. I don't know, I might even be in that shot somewhere. Yeah, yeah. And there's the classic Carl Perlman rail fan shot, you know, standing on the New York Central, looking over at the Susquehanna. Is that what they call that, the wedge? And here's, look at the car in the background. That's as rare as the engine. And like I said, this shot is not mine. Of course, you're gonna ask me, whose is it? I don't know. It's not marked, but I've been collecting slides of the Susquehanna for years. So I can put this on. Now, there's another map of the whole railroad out to Beaver Lake, which is the top of the grade. Now, I don't know why that's cut off on the bottom. The actual slide is not. So but then there was that signal. That was to protect the Hackensack River drawbridge.
So the yard offices there.
Yeah. And there's the Ridgeville Park Station, which is the big rail fan hangout. It's double track there now on CSX. Those GP-18s were nice with the slant noses. There weren't too many railroads that had them. Boston and Maine had them. And Susquehanna, of course. They also had a couple interesting branches. There was a Lodi branch, and that actually crossed Route 46 at grade, which was amazing. And I have a picture of that. Yeah. Yeah, they're all gone. What? Yeah. Yeah, because they figured railroading is done in New Jersey, freight railroading. So this is what the branch looked like. Obviously, it could have used a little maintenance, a little weed whacker action, but to see a train in daylight going down the branch, it's just amazing. And obviously there were customers because there's boxcars, tank car. And, oh, two guys from Harrison, yeah. Yep. And you could always tell it was Susquehanna when they had the zebra striped crossing box. But it's different day, different train, but you know. Kind of just came out of the jungle there. Friendly crew, like all five of them. And there it is. That's crossing the westbound lanes of 46. Amazing. You could never do that today with all the traffic you have. Either that or they would have to run it like 3 o'clock in the morning. Sounds like transit's running again. Remember Modell's Shoppers World? Wow. There's a lot of you know, nostalgia in a lot of these things. More than just the train shots. You look at the cars, you look at the stores. Here it is crossing Route 46 again. And I guess this is down near the end of the line. But they had business. You can see all those Pontiac noses. Anyway, there's that map again. You can see the Lodi branch. Then there was the Dundee branch, but I don't have any shots on that. I think that's Maywood Station before they fixed it up. Pagoda? I don't know. I thought that's Maywood, yeah.
Ted Kaminsky in the project.
Yeah, whatever happened to him? Is he still around?
Still selling freight cars.
Oh. And there's under Route 80. The Passaic Junction. Now, that's not mine, obviously, because that, it's got to be in the 1950s.
Say, John.
Yeah. Notice the semaphore signal down there.
I like the cars.
Yeah, and this is switching in the yard. Freshly painted Milwaukee Road boxcar back there. There's the Erie Bergen County line going overhead there. Well, there's a Penn Central boxcar, so it's got to be after 68 or 69. How about a Wilson refrigerator car? Yeah, you don't see reefers anymore. Railroads threw that business away. This is all before the big Walter Rich rebuild in this area. There's Patterson. That's where I actually shot a movie off the back of the train. And I was amazed that they were whipping along. And the stations weren't that far apart either. That little Alc 1000 really got it moving. This was, I think that was 1963, that shot there. Switching in Patterson. Okay, there's the Oakland Bridge that every rail fan in New Jersey has shot at. And then the Pompton Diamond, which is the former Erie Greenwood Lake branch. The diamond is still there. There's the bridge. They still go over that. The SU 99, when it's running, goes over that in daylight.
That's the 70s, 400,000 pounds.
Yeah, and the bridge kind of bends a little bit in the middle, but hasn't collapsed yet.
What river is that?
Passaic River.
See, 287.
It's in Oakland, New Jersey. Yeah. Some of these old crossing units with the big metal cases are historic in their own right. Yeah, Pompton Lakes, that's where they have that Toys for Tots train stops all the time.
My
Yeah.
friend's grandfather built that station,
Really?
RBK.
Wow. Look at the telephone booth over there. That's rare too. Yeah. Yeah, there's a Union Carbide plastics, Bakelite plastics, red and white hopper car. What's funny is these slides get older and older. It's not just the engine. Everybody, oh man, it's a GP-18. Look at that. It's like, oh, look at that freight car. Look at that vehicle. Yeah, look at that crossing cabinet over there. One of the heartbreaks of railroading today is that everything has been sterilized. It's just a single track through the woods with trees on both sides. But back then, everything was detail rich. There were phone poles, there were signals, there were stations, there's Butler Station. That's still there.
It's a museum.
Yeah, yeah. But back then it was a train station. And those were the passenger trains. Now, of course, since I was in high school, I couldn't be there on a weekday when the trains were running. But you went up there on a weekend and you could get them at least parked in the yard. I don't know what those signals were all about over on the right there. But again, it was a weekend.
That whole rail yard is important.
Yeah, that's where their shop is now. The Susquehanna has a shop there where they paint engines. And
The mill.
the mill, that was a rubber mill or something. That's all gone. The railroad, the what? Yeah, yeah.
American Hard Rubber one of the major lines of business was lining tanker cars with hard rubber.
Oh, wow.
To make them corrosion resistant.
Yeah. Notice the different radiator fans on the different engines. Yeah, well, and it was summertime too. So we got brave and we just walked up, the cab was locked, but you could shoot through the window as if you were sitting in the engineer's seat. And just looking back, as if you were really on a train. It's hard to believe that this lasted as long as it did. It lasted almost as long as the Aldine plan, which was in '67. But we knew it was rare. That's why we took so many shots. I don't think you could have chased it if you wanted to. If you had gone there on a weekday with the traffic, even back then, they really moved along as trains. But all the roads there and stoplights and traffic and school zones, you never would have been able to keep up on it. That's coming into Butler. They're switching the rubber plant. It's sad that just so much industry is gone. I mean, some industries abandoned the railroad, but a lot of industries just abandoned themselves, you know. What?
The odor in Butler is
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Did you see the standpipe over there for steam engine? On the right?
You don't like this little sulfur?
It was bad.
Yeah, see, there's the standpipe for steam locomotives over there on the left. Railroads back then just didn't rip stuff out. Today they do because they don't want to pay taxes. Illinois Central, before it became Illinois Central, Gulf, before it became Illinois Central. Before it became Canadian National. That's west of Butler. So that's a train that had gone up to Green Pond Junction. And that's Smith Bridge,
Trestle over the
Smith Mills. Yeah, there's a grade crossing right behind me.
Going up to smoke rooms.
And that's where they had that washout, which gave them an excuse to abandon. You know, it's amazing in the railroad industry, like, so they had a little bit of a washout. You could have fixed it on a weekend. But they just said, it's an excuse to abandon. If it had happened on Route 80 or something, it would have been fixed in 8 hours, you know? Yeah, but they got the road open. Yeah, and they had one on 78 too in Newark. Now, is that run? Remember there's a Creedence Clearwater song, Run Through the Jungle? Well, there it is. And that's in along Route 23 there, near where the chlorine tracks were, which nobody ever talked about, but we found them, we walked in there. And I think that's near Newfoundland.
What tracks?
There was 2 sidings that came off. This is by the reservoir. There were 2 tracks that came off the Susquehanna, ran down to an unloading rack where they unloaded chlorine for the Newark Water Department. Now there's Old Green Pond Junction before they created the reservoir there, the Charlottesburg Reservoir. Then they moved the new Green Pond Junctions over on the left side of where that blue is. Like there, where it's, yeah, right. When they built the reservoir, so it had to be like early 60s, yeah.
But I mean, the Green Pond Junction,
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, there's the main line of the Susquehanna. This is the Jersey Central over here. And the Susquehanna, and that's Jersey Central going out. We're standing on the Susquehanna, looking across the reservoir, and that's the C&J going back down toward High Bridge.
That's the new track.
The new track, yeah. But what was neat is that thing ran like 7 days a week. There's the Susquehanna track in the foreground. it's hard to imagine that such a tank town operation would be a daily operation. You would think it would have been more like the WAG, it would run like one day a week or something. And that's the Morris County Central at Newfoundland.
Oh, that's great.
Newfoundland, New Jersey, as opposed to Newfoundland, Pennsylvania. And yeah, or Canada. And that's along Route 23 without any cars going by. That's not Photoshop. That's the way it was.
That's the new.
Yeah, yeah, and there it is with the green engine. That was a neat little operation, and they got fairly good ridership, but then it just fizzled, you know.
So where does it go from Newfoundland to where?
It went to Oakland, or no, Oak Ridge, I think is what it was called. Here, it went to here, and it stopped. Oak Ridge, yeah. The what? Yeah. Oh, I remember, I went on that, yeah.
State function to
Beaver Lake, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. They were unpainted. Then he ultimately painted them in the maroon for the Susquehanna paint. Yeah, this is up near Beaver Lake. There's a 1903 topographical map. And that shows the Susquehanna over in the lower right-hand corner. And then the other one that went was the Middletown and Unionville. Yeah. There's a 1943 map at Sparta Junction where the Susquehanna crossed the Lehigh and Hudson River at grade on diamonds. Here it is, 1954 map. And the diamonds, of course, are gone, but the Susquehanna now comes from the top of that map and then goes off to the left. There's Sparta Station that actually burned down and then they rebuilt it.
Very nice.
Yeah, and they made it into more like a community center.
We tried to restore it.
Yeah, and this is right there at Sparta. Ancient looking trestle. I'm sure that's been modernized. They can't be running over that anymore. The station would be to the left in this shot. And the old water tower. Yeah, it looks like the base was built for a monster water tower, and then they put this little N scale thing on top of it. And there's, I think that's what, Route 519 or 529, something like that. No, that's no, it's not the Route 15 crossing. And that is right at Sparta Junction. The junction's behind me in this shot. That's all welded rail now and all fixed up. And there's the diamond. The track from left to right is Lehigh and Hudson River. And you're looking up the Susquehanna, looking east. And there's the agent's shed there. And here they are parallel with the L&HR. There was interchange tracks here. So they could drop cars. And they went over the diamond and then came up alongside the L&HR. And there was no signals here. It was just, and they must have had train orders or something. Yeah, but I never saw that thing tilt or move. It just. So there's a crewman. I guess he's guarding the diamond. If something's coming, it's like. Looks like it's clear to me. And then there was another sighting. Now this is looking east. You've gone over the diamond. The diamond's behind you. There was also a leg of the connecting track there on the right. And that was an Alco that was being sold to the Tennessee Railroad. They bought some of these engines. And that was in July of 1963. I think it was on a Sunday. And they ran a train. I mean, it was just like amazing that they would run on a weekend out there. And that's where the propane plant is now. And that's the first crossing up from there. So this is in the good old days in the early 60s when they were running all the way out to Sparta Junction. With a speeder coming right behind him. Yeah, I don't know what that was over there. It might have been a car just driving on the dirt road. And there's Walter Ridge. And there's that restored Alco. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the end of this one. So I'm gonna eventually make a Susquehanna show of the Walter Rich era with the Alcos going over Spruca and all that. So that's it. So it's 10 minutes to 10. They didn't throw us out of here. So-
L&HR.
Yes, no.
Well, yeah, if
Yeah.
that's 35 minutes, we can do it, get it going right away. Yeah. See, now everything works. So at least it wasn't me. I was worried, like, is it my HDMI cable? Is it my computer? So the first time I ever saw the L&HR was in 1962, when I had my mom drive Bill Chaplick and me up to Warwick, New York. And what was even better is I had written a letter, typewriter, to the president of the L&HR Railroad, telling him that we're coming up. And they invited us up, and I actually got to meet the vice president. They gave us a switch key. Can you imagine a railroad giving you a switch key today? Oh, my God. And they let us go in the shop and everything. Well, you know where that is.
Oh,
That's the New Haven, well, it's Penn Central, but it's New Haven coming down to Maybrook. I don't have too many shots up there, but I have a few. Nice New Haven caboose. New Haven was on its last legs, you know. Yeah, I'm sure. The bridge is nice. They rebuilt that and it's a walkway. That's free. Yeah, the 1957 map. ET is where the engine terminal was. Take care, Walt. And then New York Central is over on the left. There's the engine terminal. Look at that big water tower. Yeah, like, and you know what's another thing that we grieve over is that, look at that. Another thing that we grieve over is that we went there and we took pictures and we said, "Oh, that's an Alco FA." There's one in green. That was taken in 1962 by me. The thought was that you always figured it was always going to be there. Yeah, some engines might change. You know, an Alco might be replaced by an EMD SW, but it'll always be there. I mean, Maybrook isn't going to go away. The Empire State Building isn't going to go away. The Lincoln Tunnel isn't going to go away. It'll always be there. And then one day it just wasn't. And it's like, why didn't you photograph every single building in the morning on one side and the afternoon on the other side, from the north side, just everything, tracks, scale tracks, you should just take a picture of everything. But, you know, we drive up, but the problem is we were kids and to buy a roll of film cost $2.34 in Two Guys from Harrison. But then you had to pay for processing and that was about $3.05. So it was like $5 for a roll of film. Now, when you're a kid, that's an entire week's pay delivering newspapers.
It's about $50.
Right. It's about $50. And that's about what a roll of slide film and processing costs today. You can buy film. But anyway, so you had a roll of film and you were on like shot number 19, but you didn't want to use all of the rest of the pictures because you were going on an Iron Horse Ramble the next weekend. So you had to save some shots. Can you imagine if you had a brick of film back then, what you could have gotten? You were very judicious about what you pointed your camera at, took a picture of. It's like just another stupid SD-45, you know, that's all you ever. Now, if it was an F unit, well, there's a B unit in there. If it was an F unit on the point, you would be getting all sorts of shots. Let's go follow it, you know, that's just a damn SD-45. Anyway, here we are, L&HR coming in from Warwick. And there was a diamond actually in the track in the yard here. The arrival track and the departure track. See, the L&HR train coming out would go over that diamond there and then go down to the right. And that's the L&HR going to Warwick. The arrival yard was over on the right-hand side. So here's a guy coming out. This was in the transition era. They originally had 13 RS3s and managed to wreck a few of them, but and then they bought the Centuries, and I think they had 9 of them. 21.
9 Centuries and 13 of the RS3.
Yeah.
Number 10 shows.
Yeah,
Repainted in 1960 for the 110th anniversary.
yeah, they had 21 to 29, and the only thing the L&HR lacked was they didn't understand the concept of soap and water. Like they bought an engine, and it just they never washed it. You know, the paint would fade off it before the dirt would be gone, and it was a proud little railroad, and I don't understand why. Being a proud little railroad, it was privately owned, and it never occurred to them that, you know, if you had a long handled brush on a weekend when the engines are sitting there, somebody could wash it.
They had their own little office building.
Yeah, they had the beautiful office building, which I went in, yeah,
It was a pretty efficient railroad too.
Yeah.
Murex charges were included in it.
yeah, so they were,
So at midnight, they are.
yeah, they were smart,
Everything was on some other.
yeah. They would take it down to Bethlehem or down to Hudson Yard in Phillipsburg and dump it off.
Make sure things were normal, we made sure every car was.
Yep. Mhm. So we're still in Maybrook here, and as you can see, the effects of Penn Central were already being felt. You can see a lot of ripped out tracks, but nevertheless, Penn Central was always a friendly railroad. Like I was walking around, they said, "Hey, you want to come up and take a picture from the engine?" It was like, yeah, okay." So that's how I got that shot.
Number 4, one by the DL, it's in Scranton, right?
The what?
It's owned by the DL, and it's in Scranton.
What, that one?
Oh, yeah, the RS3.
Right.
Yeah. And that's light power. Sometimes they'd run a shuttle from Warwick to Maybrook. They called it a shuttle. And the engines could go back light or they could go up light. Sometimes it would be an actual train that would actually come out of there and go south all the way through. Burnside, New York is south of Maybrook. That's standing on the Erie Graham line, which is still there. That's where Metro North runs their passenger trains. And that's looking down on the L&HR coming south. And that's, I think it's Route 209 or something like that. It's a grade crossing, right? The
207.
207, yeah, and the Graham line's just to the left in this shot.
That's abandoned there now.
Yeah, that is abandoned, yeah. And I don't have to tell you where that is. Everybody's been there. We've gone there at night and done night shots and everything. And then Great Court is where they have a little interchange track with the Erie passenger line. And I'm not sure if that's, yeah, I'm not sure if that interchange track still exists today.
It does, and actually, it's a team track now, the M&J spot, Onion, Reefers.
Oh, they do?
Usually Ballard's Park, we have
Yeah.
seldom used, this is coming out of Hudson.
Yeah, yeah.
Still loading, I mean, it's a.
No,
By rail?
That's neat.
they'll
Yeah.
actually unload them there.
Yeah, that's where they're coming out of the branch. They would stop coming south and then back down the branch to either set off or pick up a car. And it's on the branch. It's a guy picking onions there and he's not even aware of the train going by. And the branch was short. It was only like a quarter of a mile.
There's a turntable pit right next to the house, it's 60-foot turntable.
Wow.
pit.
Oh,
Right on the other side of those locomotives, it's still there.
wow. But they still use this track. That's just amazing.
Yes, it's the Great Ford Industrial. It's still there.
But you said M&J uses it, not Susquehanna, right? And what do they use for an engine though? That Jeep that they
Yeah, I
have?
got 2174,
Yeah.
75, and transit units.
Oh, okay. And there's down on the lower level. So the passenger line, the Erie passenger line was off to the right. The bridge is the L&HR. There's the over-under shot. That was just dumb luck. That's just the way they stopped. So if I ever do a book on the L&HR, that'll have to be the cover shot. And there it is without the guy on the engine.
The Erie main line, the right's abandoned, the Heritage Trail.
Yeah, that's torn out. And there is, after they've put the train back together, getting going.
It's from Route 94, and I think
Yeah, and they're looking the other way.
East Chester Station was right behind where that second locomotive was. And it was actually moved in 1970 to Sugarloaf, and it still stands.
Yeah, Sugarloaf has a station. That's a big tourist area. Trouble is, the engines faded so badly at the end that they almost look like white. This was always a neat little area. It's a dirt road. Yeah,
Carriage Cross Road, that road is gone now, actually.
how could a road be gone?
Yeah,
How could a road just, how could
it's
a,
gone. It was like a farmer's crossing, and it no longer exists.
oh, they tore it out because,
Well, there's a farm there, a farmhouse. So
It's accessed now from Black Meadow Road on the other side of this.
that's where we used to turn the speeder.
oh, wow,
That was the northern
You're thinking about Barrett's Farm just south of Warwick. This is
Yeah.
Barrett's Cross Lane. This was.
different Baird family. That's Sugarloaf there.
And this is after they moved the depot, so it's post 70.
Yeah. There was freight cars there. I mean, they
That's
had,
State School Road, that's, Mid State Lumber, which burned a couple of years ago off the right.
the lumber does burn, but did they ever rebuild it?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
that's Wisner, there was a little switch there for old range, and there was a full unloading facility on the left.
Mhm.
And there was an overhead bridge that replaced in 84, 85, that sort of range, now across that grade.
Oh, it's a great crossing?
Yep.
I guess they figured there's so few trains, what do you need a bridge for it?
Well, they needed to replace the bridge with the addition of the bridge and also for the stack trains.
Oh, yeah. Here's what the big
That's
beach
a
wall.
Singer sewing machine factory at Lake. It's Lake Station Road.
Wow,
Is the water sphere still?
Yep.
Singer sewing machine isn't, they're out of business. That's Warwick Station. It's amazing that that it remained, that they didn't tear it down.
It's a realtor's office now.
Realtor? Wow, it's a beautiful building, with the turret and everything.
Is that track still in?
Yep.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's where your SU 99. Yeah, and Middletown, New Jersey, because they get down to Brown Chemical.
How fast is it on there? Frequent?
About 10, yeah, it's slow. That's the freight house.
The parking lot there now.
That's gone, yeah, because they don't have freight. That's where they would lay when they're pumping air ready to go north. Because I know what you're gonna say. Why did you have the foam pulling away? Well, that's where it was sitting. But here he is when he's getting going.
Elm Street, standing on the bridge.
Yeah. It's a beautiful area. There's the old milk house on the left. So even shots of just empty track have some value because of the structures and the track being there, you know. Almost looks like a Reading elk. Yeah, that's taken in 1962, when Bill Chapwick and I went up there for the first time ever. And they were very nice to us. They gave us an employee's timetable, they gave us a switch key, they gave us a tour of the yard, they said, you can run around, take pictures. You know, it's just amazing. Yeah,
They were all RS streets, that's all they had.
yep, yeah, it was funny that they didn't have a lot of variety, although they had a couple different schemes. Like there, they don't have the stripes on that one's Shoemaker. But they were so dirty, you couldn't tell if they had stripes or didn't. They just did not understand the concept of soap and water. We never got a chance to, we were kids, we couldn't explain it to them, you know. I mean, they paint a caboose, which is nice.
That's sitting on the scale track there next to me.
Yeah. Look at that, freshly painted. It's the only clean thing that I ever shot on the L&HR. Well, that and the Century when it got delivered. Is that the one that's in Foldsburg? 16? 18, yeah. How about 81? That's the one.
Still there, it's on the local school side, they moved it, it's on.
Yeah.
Not near the rails.
Yeah. Once it's stuffed and mounted, it doesn't count, you know, if it's off the rails.
That was a former mill park, number 90.
But they didn't really run it as a, you know,
They use it as a yard office.
yeah, yeah, no. But Warwick was a nice place to photograph. It was angled right for the sun. The only problem was with the shop. If you got there in the afternoon, the sun was behind the building, so it was terrible for light. But if you went there in the morning, it was really, really beautiful. There's the office building. It's now a library.
No, that's, it's private offices now,
Oh, they don't even use it as a library anymore?
no.
I thought the town had it for a while. Remember going here once in the Susquehanna era when they were running the stack trains. And we wanted to run down and across the track to get a shot of something. And we ran down those stairs and it's like 3 feet of snow. We were like up to our armpits, almost couldn't move.
All trees that are.
Yeah. Well, he obviously can't read all that, but that was the roster of what they have.
How long was that?
72 miles, and they own some other isolated pieces of trackage like the southeastern Phillipsburg Railroad.
Across the bridge, yeah. The L&HR bridge, they called it. There's 1962 at the shops in the morning when the sun was right. But it was really just a cute little railroad.
Numbers 3 and 10 got that ultimate clean scheme for the 100th anniversary. Nineties.
Oh, with the logos on there. Well, I understood the original paint scheme was a combination of the two owners, the Jersey Central and the Pennsy. The fat stripes, that was supposed to be the cat's whiskers from the Pennsy. And the other end with the fat stripes was to simulate the Jersey Central, like that. So that was kind of creative the way they did that.
That building's still standing. You just
Yeah.
can't go there now.
It's brown chemical, yeah.
Clean.
Clean. Yeah, because that was when it was delivered. There's the bobber caboose too. That was an open house day that they had.
If I'm not mistaken, those were the first two C420s out.
Yeah.
63.
Yeah, and then they wrecked them before they even got them, so they had to redo it. They were in that Laurel Run wreck on the CNJ in 65. Bob Bars had a night photo section at Warwick. The old fashioned way with flash bulbs, none of this electronic stuff. And we did pretty well. Problem with film night photo sessions, so you never knew if you were screwing up or getting really great shots. It was only a week or two later when your slides came back. You either knew you scored it or you screwed it up. With digital, take a picture, say, oh, that's way underexposure. Change your next one is perfect. And digital cameras do a lot better at night and low light anyway. So we don't know how good we have it now. We have all the equipment in the world. We have Zeiss lenses and Hasselblads, but there's nothing worth shooting. All the good stuff's gone. And it was just a great little railroad. You could walk around, nobody yelled at you, nobody was upset, like, don't fall in the turntable pit or anything. Yeah, that's basically what it was. Just don't do anything, don't climb on anything. That is a Jersey Central Alc. They had these for a short period of time when they wrecked two of their RS3s. But they took the Richmond, Fredericksburg, Potomac logos off them. But I never saw these run. I've never seen any pictures of them running. I must assume they must have used them or they wouldn't have had them there. They had to get there. But it was a real short-term thing.
It's gotta be 66, judging by how clean they are. That's when they lease them 66.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
leased a couple RS3s from the D&H as well.
yeah.
It was told by a small center that's how they base the grade of the D.C. on the D.H.
Yeah, there's an old steam crane,
There's a picture of one of the D.H.s in Fort Myers.
D&H engine at Fort Morris.
Yeah, it came from L&HR.
Oh, that's right. They had a train. They had a train, one train a day that ran down to Fort Morris from Warwick. And it came in the late afternoon. And then it went back. CNJ crane, yeah, CNJ gondola. There's a CNJ Alc. That was up there for a while. 759. I don't know why on earth it was up there. Yeah. Guess they had to park it somewhere. Yeah. And there's every lack of one. Look at the car. Yeah. Is that Dave Monteverdi's car now? No? Yeah, but all they ever did was just sit there and never ran, unless they ran on the night train.
L&HR box car.
Yeah. There's a flanger.
Right. And that still exists down in Phillipsburg, that 105 is painted yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Chris
interesting.
painted that.
Yeah, they,
Asked him what color it was, he said whatever the hardware store, that's the color yellow was.
Yeah,
That was no building.
like that,
There it is.
yeah. Well, it was worth photographing both sides of it because sometimes some pieces of equipment, one side is different than the other. So there's one of their little ore cars.
The line car,
Yeah, for line press down by, down past the, what is it, Sparta Junction, yeah. Remember, the public highway actually went through line press. You can drive through the plant. It was actually part of a county road. And there's Warwick Yard when there was nothing in it. There's Brown Chemical. So you said it's really hard to get in here. They get all upset. Probably fenced in. So Pelton Road was the south end of Warwick Yard. There was a public grade crossing there, so you could get trains coming in and going out. And there was usually a train that went south late in the day. Toward the end, they screwed it up because it didn't leave till like 6 o'clock. So even on the longest days of the year, you didn't have much time to chase it. And actually, in the heyday of the L&HR in the 60s, you could not chase because they did 50 miles an hour. And of course, the highways were roughly parallel, but not exactly parallel. Sometimes there was catty corners or crossings, and you couldn't like roar through Hamburg and some of these other towns at 50 miles an hour and the train was gone. You got one shot, it was gone.
County roads out there, 40 mile freeways.
Well, that meant nothing to us. We go 60. But the problem was that the road wasn't parallel. You had to come up to a stop sign, make a left, and then there was a grade crossing and he's already going over it. So now you're behind him again. Then you got to try and blast ahead of him. You just couldn't do it. It was suicide. Yeah, yeah. So he was already a mile ahead of you when he cleared. Richie, what are you doing? All right. Yeah, here's one of those sections where they're just ripping along. I think that's taken from Route 94. And Franklin was an interesting place. That's where the branch went off to the zinc mine. It was original Susquehanna track. So, and the grade crossing crossbucks actually had the zebra stripes on them. It said Susquehanna, but it was operated by the L&HR. And from Limecrest,
Sussex Road.
Sussex, yeah, yeah. But you get your hand off that computer. That's in Franklin. Come on. That's when the big processing plant was over there on the right. And there's where the old train order office was, and the old ancient bridge. Notice the stairs going down there. It was actually stairs to like a platform from when they had the era when they had passenger service, which was a long time ago. There's the branch on the right.
Susquehanna was straight right through there.
Yeah, there was a diamond there where the second unit is. There was a diamond. There's another shot down it. Yeah. I don't know when they got rid of the operator there. It must have been like in the late 50s or something.
That station used to have a tower as well. That J Tower.
It was a station, was a tower? It was a tower,
It
that
was a
station?
tower. Monument station.
Yeah, in other words, he had a CTC board in there or something. Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time it was a single unit would go up there, but that one time when I chased it, it was 3 Ls, which was pretty amazing. So this is a guy coming back from the zinc mine, back to Franklin. There's one with 3 engines. I got yelled at by some local yokel here because I came kind of like flying in at like 50 miles an hour. There's the Susquehanna stripes on the crossbuck down there. These were taken like around 1962. These are really ancient. And I never knew, I kicked myself today. I didn't know that you could just drive right into the zinc mine. I figured it's an industry, it's all fenced in, there's a guard shack, they wouldn't let you in, but. Well, that's the remains of the old Middletown and Unionville, which came off of Beaver Lake and then went
That
up to.
was a Hanford branch of the Susquehanna.
Hanford branch.
Had a junction at Hanford Junction.
Yeah, and here we are on the main line south of Franklin, and there was a meet going down. It's an empty coal train coming back from New England. And he went in the siding to meet a train coming north. There was actually that much business.
Paul Richard said that they originally considered during this Sealand rehab of the railroad.
Oh, to go up that way and come out of Middletown, you mean?
Save miles.
But it would have been kind of a rinky-dink operation. You would have been on the Middletown in New Jersey. So I climbed a signal to get this shot. Another thing you don't do these days.
The DL&W and L&H parallel to their DL&W had a branch at the Franklin.
Yeah.
All the way to 1938 or 34.
Yeah, now Route 15, I just went over this today. I was thinking, that was a grade crossing right there. Now it's a highway bridge. And in these days, this train came like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was like clockwork. You just went there, you knew it would come within 10 or 15 minutes of schedule.
There's 3 tracks there now. There's a
North of
just
there.
built a new runaround there.
Yeah, north of there, you can see it from the highway as you go over.
That's where the road train makes it set outs and pickups.
Yeah, rather than down south of the bridge. There's the Bob Barr's cow shot. That's an inflatable cow. That's not real. Barr's has it in the trunk of his car. Here's a shot taken in lousy weather that normally you put in your Raz box, but today you'd say, no, I'll keep that. And then Sparta Junction, you saw that before in the Susquehanna show. Where the Susquehanna crossed the L&HR grade. Woodruff's Gap is where that grade crossing shot was. And there's another one of those shots. That's on the L&HR looking north. There's a headlight swinging around the curve there. And there's the order boards. So I don't think the order boards mattered. They were always in that position, whether the Susquehanna was coming or whether the L&HR was coming, they were always in that position. So I guess it was just stop, look both ways and go, you know. You saw this shot in the other show. There's the one connecting track there, and then right behind me or behind him is where the other leg of the connecting track was. I think they called the sidings Sparta 1 and Sparta 2. So actually, these shots actually duplicate, they're the same shot, but in the world of digital, you can do that. But I didn't think you'd mind seeing them again. So that's at Sparta Junction. You can see there's some cars way down there for the Susquehanna to pick up. This is coming up in the morning. And in the morning, back then in the early 60s, well, I guess that would have to be 65. That's if the diamonds are ripped out. There were 2 trains that came up in the morning. One came out of Hudson Yard, and the other one came out of Bethlehem. And they were like about an hour apart, which was kind of neat. So if you went to the track, you waited around, you could get 2 trains.
It's all industry in there now. We have
Yeah.
5 customers.
Yeah, there's a lot of local business there. I don't know whether the railroad drummed that up. Customers just came and said, well, there's a railroad here, it's good enough for us.
Yes.
Andover Junction is another neat little place. There was an operator here. That's the Sussex branch of the Lackawanna, where the famous Branchville milk train used to run. And the operator there was friendly. There he is, handing up orders. And it was great because you could go there, knock on the guy's door, and he'd say, come on in. And say, is there anything coming? And he'd say, oh, yeah, there'll be a train here in about an hour. And you could get a lineup, but there's no human beings on the railroads anymore, like operators, towermen, agents. There's just nobody around to ask, you know. So, yeah, that was down there at Andover Junction. The connecting track is in the background. That's where the Lackawanna, when they were building Route 80, they were pulling sand trains out of there. Yeah. Well, there's nothing there to shoot, so it doesn't matter. That's right at Andover Junction there. There's a meet. Those are 2 trains passing. I think that was on the 4th of July, too. These shots. Another stupid trail, yeah. Well, trails are to make sure that they never run trains there again. Yeah. Yeah, and that is Fort Morris Yard. That was that evening train that came down from Warwick. And there's the educated boxcar. It's the only boxcar with PhD.
Yes, so I guess up until EM. That's fine engine through. The L&H trains.
Oh, really?
After EL, you see this.
They got rid of it. When EL formed,
There's a lot of shots of Bell Headed Sea, because there was actually 5 grade there.
yeah. They, that's coming out of the cutoff, which is still cut off. And
Forms, the concrete forms for the arch, which is still laying there today
well,
on the side. Pretty rotted right now.
yeah. You think we'll ever see trains on the cutoff? Maybe,
Hopefully, this is the last best chance.
yeah. We just better hope Biden gets elected 3 more times. He'll be 96.
It's gonna happen.
Great Meadows,
Great
that
Meadows,
station
Great
was still there,
Yeah,
and those rails are still in.
yeah.
Yeah, how did a 10-foot mile on the rail survive?
The property owners with the, and they wanted it.
He said if you take those rails up, I'm gonna shoot. They didn't. You can run the speed around it.
Miles of this, are the fish not really,
Yeah. Well, there's where Dick Forrest used to work. He was going to college, he was an operator. G-string tower, yeah.
There's still some rail left in the Y there, Bell here.
Well, the track still goes through there. They still go through there on the,
Yeah.
not on the L&HR, but on the Petsy. They go up to that pharmaceutical place. I wonder whose basement that's in. Probably Frank Worley. And there is the Pensy's on the left, the L&HR track is on the right. Interesting, there was only one switch there. So I don't know what the tower did except just record the fact that the train went by.
The L&HR was actually double track, the only portion of the L&HR double track, this is the time gate.
Right there
From G Tower to Belvedere.
to about here, I guess, yeah. But it wasn't a very long stretch. So the L&HR owned a little short piece of track in Phillipsburg from the Pensy, which they ran on trackage rights over to get on the Jersey Central. And from Phillipsburg to G-string Tower, it was trackage rights on Pensy. I heard it's coming over the bridge.
The 2 companies that go that way.
Yeah,
One of them goes in.
Yep. And there's looking east toward Phillipsburg.
Time for 5 turntables. Because 1 turntable.
Well, they had 5 railroads. And that's in Bethlehem off the Hildy Hall Bridge at JU. And the track on the right was the Lehigh New England coming down, now the cement secondary. That's right there. And then they laid over in the Bethlehem engine terminal, so you could get L&HR, Reading, and Jersey Central all in one place. No, they wouldn't, not when it was Jersey Central. No, Jersey Central never threw anybody out anywhere. When it became the Lehigh Valley, they did. Yeah. That's at Lehigh in Pennsylvania. They were on lease to the Lehigh Valley. Yeah, that was the first time. That was the first time they got wrecked. Yeah, that was the only time. A clean engine and they wrecked it. It was because a Jersey Central crew fell asleep. So they had an excursion from Bethlehem to Warwick, quickest down in Erie. And of course, it was in terrible weather. Most of the fan trips that ever ran on the L&HR were always in terrible weather. I don't know how they. Yeah, Slobber Face, they called it.
They're restoring.
Yeah, there's Great Meadows. When there was a reason to go there.
It's still 1 car.
Freight car? Yeah. And this is up near Andover.
That's like for now.
Was that like Grinnell? I don't remember all those trees being there on the left.
Yes.
That's it, Warwick.
What Rich said we could have.
And where would you put it?
And
That's it. Oh, finally. It's 10:30. We're gonna go off for breakfast. All righty, yeah, the computer worked.
All right, thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone for your patience, getting all the technical issues. Hopefully we'll be back in business next month. But next month will be the construction of Route 280. We're all looking forward to that.